May the words of my lips, the meditations of our hearts be forever acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. I have to say, if you all decide to move any further back, I'll be at the back of the church to do the sermon. You're just all giving me a bit of practice at walking, aren't you? Absolutely, I think, sort of. Well done, good and faithful servant. Words I believe we would all hope to hear. We hear them used often at retirement services of someone, or maybe even at a funeral. Maybe it is what we hope to hear should we get the joy of meeting our God face to face. Furthermore, words like, enter into the joy of your master. Imagine that. To be invited into the joy of our Master and Lord. So what is it today that we're being told we have to do if we want to hear those words that we desire so much? We're told the least we should do is to invest with the bankers, of all people. So then when you're called into account for what you have done with what you've been given, you'll be able to offer even the least that you have received with interest. Now, I agree, today that would still be very little, but it would be more than what you started with in the beginning. I am sure the message is that we should do something with what we have been gifted by God. Each one of us, however small or large, we consider that to be. Not to simply stay with whatever we have or are. God expects us to do something. Stunning thought, but God actually expects us to do something. To act. To do even the least that we can do to invest in God's giving. Anyone who's ever been on a committee or a council with me will attest to the fact that I strongly believe that God doesn't expect or want us to do nothing. It's not enough to sit and just, I go to lots of meetings and I hear we're being good stewards. And so we're very tight-fisted and we place around those things, not giving it away, not doing this, putting lots and lots of caveats on things about why people should or shouldn't receive from us. God expects us to do something with what we've been given. That we're expected to give what we have, and then the blessings will continue to fall upon us as well. Just as they do in this parable for those who did act by doing something rather than burying and forgetting. Certainly, as I visit round with patients every day, when they sometimes kindly say that they're being so well treated, how joyous they are and how privileged they feel to be where they are receiving the treatment they are. And that is the very reason that we all go to the hospital every day, is to serve those people. Sometimes gets forgotten, and sometimes, we feel like maybe we're not getting what we should get, and we feel a bit cranky about that. And sometimes the staff, yes, get a bit titchy too. But the point is, if we didn't believe in serving, none of those people would be there. They are the cause of our very action. We are called to action each and every moment of the day. So are all of us as God's disciples. Not always in the same way. I'm not suggesting you all turn up the hospital tomorrow. But we are all called, and we are all expected to respond to that call every day. So today, as this will probably be the last time that in this year that I get to share with you, so I wanted to share the story of a young man, patient at one of the hospitals that I minister in. Now, we all know that some people seem to have more than others. You know, it's very easy to look and go, oh, why do they always get? Or how come I never get, etc. But even those who have a little, or who seem to have more misfortune than others in the world that besets them, how they too continue to demonstrate how they can use whatever they have been given to keep going, to improve the world for all. So to my young man, who is not even 30 yet, and I've only more recently met because of the work that I do, I can see a loving heart and a gracious and grateful character. His life, it appears, has not been easy from the beginning. His mum looked after him as best she could, but if it were not for the love of grandparents, he may not be the person he is today. That's his words, not mine. And he's also very happy for me to be sharing his story with you today. He grew up, but he had to get off to work early to help with paying bills and make his way in the world. He became a miner until he suffered from a terrible accident, and although he recovered, was not able to return to the work that he knew, as we so often hear. So not to be deterred, he took what little he had, learnt some new skills, and found himself a job as an interstate truck driver. Not the best job for a young man with a partner, but it brought the money in, paid the bills, and he had those skills, so he used them. Before long, they were blessed with their first child, and they rejoiced. They had found a home. It wasn't much, but it was what they could afford, and they had love and felt very blessed, he tells me. Just as he was building a wonderful reputation for himself as a reliable and faithful employee, think about our people with their talents, and so he's now investing himself in the work that he's been given. His partner was very close to having their second child, with the first one at just 1 year old, and the floods struck. And he was on the other side of the country. But because he was a good and faithful servant to his people that he worked with, they rang him and said, unhitch your trailers, get home as fast as you can. Make sure you get there before the flood comes and before your wife has the baby. So off he went. He made it back, but he wasn't able to return to the driving job that he had because of the state of the roads. He had obviously been a great employee because the company, wait for it, gave him the truck. Now, for any of you that know the cost of trucks, pretty amazing stuff. But they said, you've got 2 children, you need to provide. You stay over there, we'll contract the work, and you stay where you can do the work so that you've got a job and you can try and get back on your feet. So he did that, but now has 2 young children and a wife or a partner. Then just 3 months after the first floods came the second floods, and the house was flooded again. This is when he tells me that they decided that they couldn't do this any longer, not with 2 young children, so they asked his grandparents if they could move back to Queensland to be with them until they could get back on their feet again, and that's exactly what they did. How many people have we already heard about who are doing and acting in a way that can be useful and invest what they have to encourage others, whether that's as a parent, a grandparent, a neighbour, a friend, the trucking company, his grandparents. We've just got what we have, but we're prepared to invest it in you. So one might hope that this would be the end of this story for the young man and his family. Things did pick up for a while, and when they'd saved enough money to move out to a rental, they decided they would do just that because they needed to stand on their own 2 feet. So they found a rental and they decided to get married. We better do that since we're now here and we've got a place and we're on the right track again. So they just started getting organised for that, feeling very happy, and he tells me feeling more secure than they had in a very long time. Then he became sick. But initially, all was very hopeful, and he was told to just postpone the wedding because he would get better. They'd be able to fix him. Well, unfortunately, of course, as you've all guessed, that's when I come into the picture, because he then got given some really bad news, and that was that his liver was failing, and unless he got a transplant, he would not live any more than a few weeks. So that's when, of course, I get a phone call. Cheryl, can you come and do something? This couple wants to get married before this happens. Not to be deterred, one finds that hard to imagine, doesn't it? I'm still going to invest what little bit I've got. Now, he had a whole bunch of people who saw what a good and faithful servant he was, and so they wanted to encourage him. Remember those words from Thessalonians? Encourage one another, build one another up. So today, he will marry his partner. Some of those people have waived their fees entirely. Others have worked tirelessly to ensure it'll all come together for them today, as it should. What's more, so this is almost like an appendum, because I'd written this and I was going to share that with you. But what's more, just a couple of days ago, this young man was approved for transplant. Now, that simply means he gets to go to the top of the list because he is now desperate, but at least he's well enough to accept a transplant should one come on board. So he now waits for yet another unknown person whose family will be suffering their own greatest grief, to offer him and his little family the greatest gift of all, another chance of life. Through all this gentle and gracious man cannot believe the generosity of others. He is often in tears at the way others are encouraging him, building him up, so that he might meet the challenges again and again before him. So, obviously, as I was writing this sermon, I couldn't think of a better example of how we can all use what we're given to serve a master of love and care. The thing I find interesting is that many of the people involved in this story would not consider themselves Christians. But here we see the mark of the maker. My point, everybody is created by God. Everybody has gifts. Everybody needs to use them. Whatever talents we're given, and God encourages us to use those talents to serve our God and Creator. I see this in so many ways every day, and I'm sure you do too. Do you let those people know what wonderful things they're doing? Do you remind them what good and faithful servants they are being? Today, as I leave here to join that little family, to celebrate a wedding, to be followed by a simple Subway lunch on a lawn, and listen to them offer their vows before God in a holy place, I know where my prayers will fly. To the God of all, everyone beyond these walls, who bids us to encourage one another, to build each other up, not tear one another down. So, my challenge for you, as I said, might be my last chance this year to ask the question, how will you invest what God has given you? Amen.